Welcome to the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Anita Brooks, and here you'll find teaching topics, interviews, conversations, and coaching tips, all designed to help you level up. We all lead someone. The question is, are we leading well, exceptionally well? So join me on a quest, not for perfection, but absolutely for exceptional leadership. Welcome back. So often, as I'm doing my in-person business coaching through the P4 Power Coaching practice, I take my clients through many exercises and we go through resources that are designed to help them plug their invisible drains. And if you follow me for very long at all, you're going to hear me discuss this topic. It is crucial to successful, profitable business. So what is an invisible drain? An invisible drain is anything that steals our money, time, and energy. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that we can't see it, but it means we're not seeing it. We're avoiding or ignoring it. Or maybe we truly don't realize it exists. But it is the source, the real origin of things that are keeping us from being profitable in everything that we do. Financially profitable, emotionally profitable, mentally profitable, relationally profitable. There are so many aspects to this, and this is why I am passionate that my clients that I work with are constantly evaluating their invisible drains, looking to identify them, and then figuring out how to plug them. And again, that's much of the work that I do. So I recommend a quarterly evaluation to look for invisible drains. And so on this episode, I thought we would just very briefly go through what the 7 core drains are that I've identified that every business, regardless of what industry it is that I'm called to come into to help, I find issues in these areas. So I'm going to cover each of them in an overview, and then I'm just going to briefly talk about each of these areas. So if you put the words unclear and inconsistent in front of these are the 7 core drains that 100% of the time to date, I have found issues in all of these areas for every business that I've worked with. And remember, I've been doing this kind of work for years. So unclear and inconsistent expectations. This is so massive, and it is invisible because we don't even think about what our self-talk is driving. So we're going to come back to that a little bit. Second one is unclear and inconsistent communication. Then there's unclear and inconsistent processes, unclear and inconsistent training, unclear and inconsistent customer care, unclear and inconsistent accountability. Oh my goodness, is this one a toughie for leaders that I work with? And then finally, unclear and inconsistent execution or follow through. So I've listed them in an order of priority that I take my clients through as well. And I'm going to tell you why that is as we go through these in this list. So let's talk about expectations. Unclear and inconsistent expectations are those things that we think about. Again, our self-talk drives or feeds a lot of our expectations. But so often we assume that other people clearly understand what we expect when that is not indeed fact. I run into this issue over and over, and I have some very specialized exercises that I take my clients through that helps to unearth this and reveal where unclear and inconsistent expectations are draining not only the organization, not only its profits, but the people who are working there. You can lose great people if you don't plug this drain. So really, evaluate yourself. And this is something that I challenge my leaders to do. And if you're going to be an exceptional leader, this is something you need to do as a matter of practice. But really evaluate your own expectations. One, are they reasonable? Two, do other people even know what they are? And how much are your emotions and your self-talk impacting what your expectations are? Are you even consciously aware of what your expectations are yourself? So many, especially at the executive level of leaders that I usually initially work with, they aren't even clear on that themselves. And I actually have to help guide them through some activities that helps to reveal that. But oftentimes they're surprised at what they expect. And sometimes it isn't what they always initially thought it was. But again, for you, for your organization, and for your success as an exceptional leader, I challenge you to really take an honest and hard look at what your expectations are. And then that's going to take us into the next one. Communication. First off, you need to communicate what your expectations are clearly and consistently to the people that you're leading, to the people that you're impacting. So many times we don't even understand that we may be impacting someone that we don't work directly with, but indirectly, the expectations we set in our department areas or our oversight areas are affecting others. So we need to consider who we're affecting and who is affecting us in the jobs that we do, and think about that as far as our expectations and then communicating those. But it's not just expectations we need to communicate. I'll tell you right now, I have got 3 different business coaching clients where I am having to do ongoing work with the executive leaders because they are the worst at not being responsive. So if they get an email where there's maybe a middle manager that is needing to get direction or approval before they can move forward and make progress, so many times the executive leader is the bottleneck because they're either very late in responding, or this one just makes me shake my head. Sometimes they never respond at all. Do you know how that makes your people feel when they think you're ignoring them or avoiding them or just disregarding them, thinking that they're not important enough or what their questions aren't important enough for you to answer? I mean, if you don't have an answer yet, at the very least, say to them, I got your email. I'm thinking about it. I'll get back with you by such and such a date. Now put a date stamp on that so it holds you accountable. And so they know if they don't get a response by then, they need to circle back. And I would even say that if you've not heard from me by this date, please circle back again. But leaders, stop ignoring your people. I cannot say this loudly or strongly enough. You want to know how many invisible drains this creates a cascade effect for when you are not responsive? Because what happens, you think that maybe it's just going to go away? No, people still need the answers. And here's another thing that happens from this that just boggles my mind. And I have seen this as a pattern across many leaders, many businesses, many industries. A leader will be the bottleneck. So you have someone who's been tasked with maybe a project or maybe some kind of process improvement or something of that nature. And they reach a certain point and they need approval or they need input from their leader. So they ask for it. They get crickets. They get no response. Nothing's happening. They try again. Still crickets. They may try 3 or 4 times. But then that individual will finally say to themselves, and I know this as a fact, oftentimes they'll say, you know what, if they don't care, I don't either. Well, I guess it's not that important. I guess they really didn't want me to do this after all. And they kind of throw their hands up and give up. Well, then I'll be doggone if that leader doesn't turn around later and then want to rake that employee over the coals because they didn't complete or they didn't make the progress they should have made or they thought they should have made. Leader, take responsibility. Be communicative with your employees. If they ask you a question, respond to them. Even if you have to delay, but then put a timestamp on it. If you need to set up a triggering system for yourself or a tickler system so that you can remember to respond to them, then by golly, do it. Put it in your calendar. I have to do that for myself all the time. But make sure that people know that they can trust you as a leader. They can count on you, not to ignore or avoid them. Because if you start doing that to people and they begin to feel disrespected, you are in danger of something else settling into the human mind, and that's justification. And let me tell you something. You want to talk about causing invisible drains. Let justification take hold of someone's mind. So don't put yourself in that position. Make sure that you are clear and consistent in your communication for your expectations, for your responsiveness. If there's a change that's coming that's going to affect or impact people, make sure that you communicate early and often. Don't put it off. Don't think you're going to do it later. Take care of it now. It's so important that we make sure that we get these things covered. The next one is unclear and inconsistent processes. I cannot tell you how much money is lost and wasted because there are not clear and consistent standards and systems and procedures and processes in place. I was just doing business coaching with a client just a few weeks ago, and we identified $100,000 a year, every year, annually, that is lost to just one situation where there was not a clear process in place. We plugged that drain in my business coaching scope with them immediately. I helped them go through an exercise where we identified a process that everyone who was impacted agreed, yes, this is the one that is the simplest, and it's going to be the one that's going to be the streamlined the best, and it's going to work. And so they now are saving that $100,000 a year because we plugged that process drain. They actually had another process drain that we were able to plug that's not going to save them quite that much money, but it's still going to save them a lot. Let me tell you something. When you save money, that's the same as putting money in the bank. We all know how hard it is to generate income at times. Well, you know what? Sometimes the easy button on generating income is saving money. So make sure that you have good, clean, and clear processes that your people understand, that they are engaged in, that they're utilizing. I have another client. They had a process. They actually had it very well mapped out. They had it written out. It was set up not only in like bullet point instructions, but a visual form. Guess what? There were about 3 departments that were not following the process. So what was happening when the first department, when it got to their stage, there was a little bit of a breakdown. When it got to the next stage, there was a deeper breakdown. When it got to the third stage, it fell apart and it didn't go anywhere else from there. Let me tell you something. In this case, we're talking almost $1 million a year. Okay, yeah, take a breath and think about that again. $1 million a year because we supposedly have a process in place, but we don't have oversight making sure that the process is being followed through. So make sure that there are clear and consistent processes. And that was the problem. There was some lack of clarity. There was some confusion in the processes. No one was doing it intentionally that they weren't following the procedures, but they didn't have that good understanding. So make sure it's clear and consistent. And I promise you, you're going to help put more money in your bank. You're going to blacken your bottom line. You're going to beef up those net profits if you're able to plug those drains. The next one, it's unclear and inconsistent training. So many times people will say, well, we don't have time or money for training. I'm going to throw that back at you and say, you cannot afford to not train because when you don't have consistent and clear training that everybody's on page with, we're all following pretty much the same, again, processes and procedures, systems and standards, then what you have are hit and miss, or one person does it this way, another person does it a different way. One person says, oh, you don't have to worry about that. I had that with a client just in the last couple of months. We, as I was going through one particular exercise, we identified that we had a major issue because of the training, because they were just having like different people like kind of thrown in the mix to do training. Well, what was happening, there were probably about 3 different people that, as part of their training method, if you will, that new hire, they were kind of leaning in and whispering, well, they're going to tell you that you have to do this, this, and this, but yeah, you really don't have to. Don't worry about it. And don't worry about making quota, because this was manufacturing. Don't worry about making quota. I mean, yeah, they'll tell you that you need to, but it's okay. If you do that, you're just going to make the rest of us look bad. Well, here's the thing. Some of the areas that they were telling new hires that they could ignore were actually safety issues. And they could have been massive safety issues with disastrous consequences if those were ignored. So we knew immediately we need to jump on that. The other thing was not meeting quota. Well, you know what? Then you're in jeopardy of not meeting customer deadlines. You do that for a while, you're not going to be able to run a sustainable business. I cannot encourage you or urge you enough to make sure that you have training procedures in place and that they are followed through consistently. Make sure that whoever it is you are designating as trainers, that they are doing it the same and they are following the training policies. Make sure that they're not going off and doing some kind of little whisper. And you'd be amazed at how much that can happen. But if you, as an exceptional leader, just do periodic check-ins, spot checks, it can make all the difference in the world. And that's going to be part of accountability. And we'll get to that here in a couple of minutes. Okay, let's talk about our 5th invisible drain, core invisible drain, customer care. Now, I use the term customer care, not customer service, very intentionally. One, I think that we've used the term customer service so much, it's become almost cliche to people's ears or minds. They don't really give it that much thought because it's been spoken about so much. But if you use the term customer care, it's a little different kind of a term that catches people's attention. And at least for now, until it catches on more. But the other thing is, when you say customer service versus customer care, there's just something about the term care that makes it feel more personalized and more meaningful. So that's why I like that term. But when I talk about plugging customer care drains, I actually come at this from 2 different directions. So I talk about internal customer care first. Now, a lot of folks don't really stop and think about this, but the people that you work with, the people you work alongside, the people you work in conjunction with, maybe in other departments or agencies or locations, those are all internal customers to you. Sometimes you're going to be their customer, but what that simply means is at some point, someone is going to need something or ask for something from the other person. And so at that stage, you become their customer or they become your customer. So we need to be intentional and make sure that we're providing clear and consistent customer care internally. One, we just need to think about it that way. Make sure that our self-talk when someone asks us for something isn't groaning or being resentful or frustrated with that person or blaming or accusing in our minds for whatever, reason that we come up with. But instead, we remember that we are there to serve them. We are there to care for the needs that they have at work. And frankly, we better do that because, sometimes those tables turn and they may be your customer right now, but maybe tomorrow you're going to be theirs and you're going to get what you give. So make sure that you provide exceptional customer care to the folks that you work with internally. And when I say that, also keep in mind that the vendors that you work with, that the contractors, sometimes some of you have subcontractors that you work with, those are internal customers as well. They're kind of insiders, but we need to serve each other. We need to do so with grace. We need to do so with professionalism, and we need to do so exceptionally. But then let's talk about the external customer. These are the folks who are opening their wallets or their bank accounts to do business with us. And we do need to think about providing not just customer care, but exceptional customer care. What's going to set us apart? Why are they going to choose us instead of a competitor? I mean, really think about that. And remember this, people buy based on emotions. Even people who think that they buy based on just factual data, practical reasons, I promise you, if I were to sit down and have a one-on-one conversation with them, I would be able to ask enough questions and unlayer enough that I would be able to help them see how they're really making emotional decisions to purchase. We all do it. And so think about that. How can you help their emotional state by providing exceptional customer care? Maybe it's going the extra mile and doing something that they don't really expect to be part of the package for what they're paying for, but you do some extra touches for them. Or, what about this? So often, we'll say about our customers or to our customers, "Oh, I appreciate your business." But do they really feel that? Like, do they really sense that it's authentic, that you genuinely appreciate their business? Find ways to express gratitude. That is exceptional customer care. And it's something that not enough business owners or business leaders or just business employees are doing these days. If you begin to think about customer care from those perspectives, it's going to help you plug any invisible drains you have where your customers don't feel cared for. And don't be afraid to ask them what's going to make them feel cared for. But when you ask, make sure that you're willing to do something with the information they provide. We can't always give people exactly what they ask for, but we can usually find a way to give them some form of it. So again, just keep that in mind and be consistent in providing that exceptional customer care. Okay. Invisible drain number 6, unclear and inconsistent accountability. Leaders, listen to me. Almost everyone that I've ever worked with has struggled in this area. I want to give you a few tips that I give my business coaching clients. First off, quit procrastinating and quit avoiding it and quit seeing it as simply a negative thing. Accountability is not just disciplinary actions. Because frankly, if it's come to a stage of disciplinary action and we've done nothing before, we've already dropped the ball. Accountability should first and foremost begin with support and encouragement. This is where we should communicate clearly, consistently, early, often when we identify there's an issue or a problem. We need to stop being afraid to let our people know that we see this issue and we do have an expectation that it's resolved, but that we are exhibiting a willingness to support them in that. That may mean that we need to provide additional training. Maybe they need some more materials or resources. But we're going to do everything in our power to help salvage an employee instead of just playing the blame game with them. Because I promise you, you are going to spend a lot of money if you have to replace them starting from scratch and trying to train someone. Now, I'm not saying that 100% every employee is salvageable. Sadly, there are folks who lack integrity, who don't exhibit good work ethics, and they have no intention of changing that. There are some people who are not coachable or teachable. If you have truly exhausted every effort and you believe you have that kind of an individual, then accountability measures say deal with it. You do need to go ahead and cut them loose, but only after you have made these other efforts. But don't drag it on too long. And I know it's a fine line between like, well, how long do I do that? There are some specific things that you can go through. I usually have a 3 to 4 step system of accountability that I, urge my clients to go through. But first and foremost, asking them, what are you lacking? It's a great question. And then listen to them and don't get defensive. Whatever they tell you, don't argue with them. Don't feel like you're being backed into a corner or being blamed for something. Just see it as an objective issue that they're raising and ask yourself, is there something I can do to help make this better? If there is, then do it. If there's not, explain the why behind the what. Why aren't you able to provide whatever it is that they're saying that they're lacking? If it's training, which I will tell you probably at least 8 times out of 10, that's the issue. The employee themselves may not necessarily understand that, but if you listen closely as a leader, you'll begin to pick up on it and you'll understand that you need to provide that for them. But that's a support stage. The next stage of it is you've provided the support to the best of your ability with whatever you can do within your power. You've gotten them the materials, the resources, the trainings that they need to further empower them to do a better job. And let's say, though, that at this stage, they're not really taking advantage of those things that you've helped them with. Then you need to call them back in for a one-on-one, or actually, usually it's better to have another person in the room. I do recommend you not exhibit or exercise any kind of accountability measures that there's not a third-party witness to. There's just too much that can happen between a she said, he said, or she said, he said. Just make sure that you do have a witness for that. But when you bring them in, this time it's going to have to be a firmer conversation. Hey, we talked about this before. I got you this, or this, and it's been this much time. And I would say you probably, depending on the situation, you probably want to give them anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks. It just depends on your business and what the issues that have come up have been. But I'm still not seeing any progress. I've not seen any improvement. We need to figure out what the problem is, and we need to get this resolved because, frankly, I don't want to have to go to the next step. And if we don't get resolution now, then we're going to be at a write-up stage. And I really don't want to go to disciplinary action. I will if I have to. But this is where we're at. So you tell me, what is it you need? What are you still lacking? How can we get you to a place of solution and resolution? Because we're in a position where if we don't see the change, your job could depend on it. Now, a lot of times that will open up even deeper questions, concerns, confusion that this employee may have. And I've seen that many times. The first time, maybe they're not as comfortable, or maybe they're not taking it as seriously. It can be one of either two of those situations. And so they haven't told you everything that's weighing on their mind. A lot of times this will draw that out. When you have this conversation, If they're lacking something that, again, is within your power to provide, you do so. Most of the times between the first and second session, you're going to see things turn around. However, there's always that little tiny small percentage of people that it doesn't matter and you're still not seeing improvement. Now you're at step 3. Step 3, you bring them in. You are going to have to do disciplinary action. There's going to have to be write-ups. You're going to need to follow the HR procedures, and probably HR is going to be very much involved in this. If you don't have an HR person, if you're kind of a solopreneur or a very, very tiny business, then maybe you as a leader, you're doing the HR side of things too. If that's you, I just caution you, make sure that you do research or you speak to an attorney to find out legally what the steps are that you need to take when you're following disciplinary actions with an employee. When you do this, there needs to be, again, a timestamp, a time limit where you clearly set your expectation that you're going to see some change, transformation, improvement, progress of some sort. And then at this point, if you go through that stage, and again, you're doing everything within your power, your due diligence, and there's no improvement, don't drag this thing out. Don't hope that by, sticking your head in the sand, it's somehow going to get better. It's not. You just need to go ahead and let them loose. And I know sometimes it hurts. You're like, I need them. I don't have anybody else. A lot of times we find that when we have an employee who is resistant or argumentative or uncoachable, unteachable, especially uncoachable and unteachable. Sometimes they can be resistant or argumentative in the beginning just because there's some chaos and confusion. If you clear that up, sometimes that resolves it. But if you have someone that's just their nature and no matter what you do, it's not going to change, then you're better off to let them go because you can usually accomplish more with less, with fewer people. And so I would just say, take courage, step up, do the hard thing. And if you have other great employees, I promise you, they are going to be applauding, even if they have to work harder for a while until you find an appropriate replacement. But they're going to be applauding because nothing frustrates a great employee with good work ethics and integrity more than seeing someone who lacks those virtues getting away with dragging everybody and everything else down. And you can lose your great employees by not exerting clear and consistent accountability. So hear me now. Make sure that you plug this drain if it's one in your business or your organization. Okay, finally, coming to the last one. Unclear and inconsistent execution or follow through. Oh my goodness. How many times do we get great ideas, or maybe we go to a conference and we write all these wonderful notes, or we have a brainstorming session and we have these good intentions, but we don't execute. We don't act on them. We don't follow through. Listen, plug those drains. I promise you, if you are not executing on good ideas, on things that could be profitable ideas, and you really do need to evaluate it by that. Is this going to potentially lead to generating net profits? If the answer is yes, this needs to become a priority. Get off the stick. Stop procrastinating. Stop telling yourself how all these other things are getting in the way. Make it a priority and do the thing. If you need to get other people involved to help you execute and follow through, then do it. Again, if you need tickler systems or triggers to remind you so you don't forget, I can tell you, if you were looking at my office right now, I could show you, I have a whiteboard, or some people call it a grease board, and every month I list out my top 10 priorities for the month. It keeps it in front of me. When I walk into my office, I know what I need to execute on, and I cannot tell you how many times that board has made sure that I've done that. But it's not the only thing I use because I'm not always in my office. Sometimes, depending on what it is I need to follow through on, I just put it in as a calendar. I schedule it in my calendar to make sure it gets done. I also use an organizational tool with my P4 Power Coaching team, and it's Monday.com. I love Monday.com. It is a fantastic organizational tool. And there's so many ways that you can use it, and I'm sure we're not even using it to its full potential. But I can tell you it is saving and making us money because we're not losing sight of very important tasks and projects and just undertakings that we need for P4 Power Coaching to be successful at an exceptional level. We have some fantastic visions and some things that we are putting some pieces in place. I mean, oh my gosh, you've got to stay tuned. We have got some cool things coming around the corner. But a lot of that is happening because we are so intentional. And I'm driving that as the leader because I have to practice what I teach. If I'm going to teach exceptional leadership, I have to be an exceptional leader. So we are making sure that we keep these things in front of us so that we do follow through and we execute. And we can't help you be an exceptional leader if we're not providing you with the resources and materials and the education that are going to take you there. And so it all comes together. So at the end of the day, what we're doing impacts you. It's part of the way that we make a difference. And so keep that in mind. Whatever it is that you've put off executing or you've kind of let it fall back on the back burner, remember, and you've heard me say this, it's never too late for a fresh start with fresh faith. So start today. Don't worry about what happened yesterday, but make the change now. There's no sense in wasting more emotional energy by beating yourself over it. But go ahead and get started and execute. And I promise you're going to feel relieved and you will see healthy effects on your bottom line. And with that, I do want to tell you, because at the time of this recording, we are coming to the close of another year. So we're closing in December 2022. And I am really thrilled that we're going to be releasing something in 2023 that I think is going to help a lot of people. It's also going to help me kind of somewhat be in multiple places at one time, reach more people, because it's getting to the point, the demand for my P4 Power Coaching, the business coaching that I do, it's becoming higher and higher. And, there's only so much of me to go around. I am working on a long-term vision that's going to provide resources so that whether I'm not available in the moment or, God willing, even beyond my own life, that the things that I've learned through these decades of experience and expertise are going to be able to continue helping people. But for now, one of the ways that I'm going to do that is I am launching a P4 Power Coaching community. So this is a monthly membership, and I'm just thrilled that I'm going to be able to make this happen finally. So it's going to be a pretty intimate group. The price is going to be $75 a month. And, I did the math and I thought, you know what? That's about half the price of buying a daily Starbucks latte for a month. And I thought, you know what? For everything that we're offering, that's a really good price. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure how long I'm going to offer it for this price, but for whomever signs up now, I'm going to grandfather you in for at least 2 years. So just so you know that. But you're going to get a lot of insider tips, some of the exercises and activities that I've developed. And I'm telling you, I have hundreds of them. If you could only see all the files. And I use, depending on what my coaching clients' needs are, I will use various ones in my coaching practice. But on the podcast, there's never any time to be able to really delve into that, or rarely time to really delve into what the specifics are. And plus it's a podcast, so it's not visual. So one of the things that I'm going to do is we're going to have like a monthly Zoom meeting with the P4 Power Coaching community. And within that, sometimes I'll be sharing some of these exercises and activities and resources because I can do that in that Zoom platform. It'll be kind of like strategic mastermind, networking, coaching kind of a session. And you'll be able to learn not just from me, but from other people. And that's always exciting too. One of the great benefits that I bring to my business coaching practice is because having developed the reputation that I have through the years, I've gotten to work and I continue to work across many different industries. And what's so cool is I learn something from one industry that actually I can bring into other industries in ways that those folks wouldn't have thought of. Because, in our industries, we kind of get in our own little boxes. And so it's really super neat when I'm able to light people up and have their eyes widen because I get to show them something new and exciting and fresh that I learned in another industry. Well, that's going to happen somewhat just organically in this P4 Power Coaching community as well. I'll facilitate it. I'm a certified training and meeting facilitator, so I will facilitate. So they'll be organized and so forth. But I'm just really excited about what we're going to be able to offer. And then for anyone who's part of our P4 Power Coaching community, like anytime that we're offering new resources, because we're getting ready to drop some digital courses, we're working on new ebooks and workbooks. We've already got some available. Even if there's a speaking opportunity, like if you have a conference or a retreat, a strategic retreat or a business retreat of some kind, if you have that, if you're part of this community, I'll offer you a discount. It's going to be kind of like an insider place. So if you're interested in that, just go to anitabrooks.com and check it out. And remember this, just recently I was meeting with one of my coaching clients, and she's in a very high level leadership position. And she kind of had tears in her eyes. And she said, Anita, I really look forward to when you come, because leadership is lonely. And a lot of days I feel like I'm just doing everything wrong. And I feel like I'm never going to get it all together. And then you come in and you point out the things that I'm doing right. And as much as I learn from you, and as much as your coaching gets me to execute on things that I wouldn't have executed on otherwise, I look forward to the encouragement as much as either one of those. So I really do educate, I guide to execution, but I also encourage. And in the P4 Power Coaching community, that's one thing that you're always going to get from me, is because I love to celebrate wins, and I love to celebrate wins with you. So if you're interested in something that's going to hold you accountable each month, that's going to give you deeper education, but that's also going to encourage you, and you're going to be surrounded by people who will celebrate your wins, then I urge you to go to anitabrooks.com and sign up for the P4 Power Coaching community. I really hope to see you there because, as you know, my mission in life is to help create more exceptional leaders, because the more that we are intentional about our leadership, the more we will make a bigger impact and a greater difference in the world. Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Exceptional Leadership Podcast. There's magic in meeting with an objective, and I always have an objective for you, not only in these episodes, but also from the other resources I offer on my website, anitabrooks.com. That's ANITABROOKS.com. There you'll find information on digital courses, webinars, books, workbooks, of course, my in-person P4 Power Coaching for businesses and organizations. And if you need a speaker for your conference or your strategic retreat, I'm your gal. But I'm also excited to let you know about a new service that we're offering. For less than half the price of a daily Starbucks latte for a month, you can join our P4 Power Coaching community. This is a monthly membership where you'll get insider tips, and you'll also be able to join our monthly Zoom meetings that are one part strategy sessions, one part mastermind, one part networking, one part coaching. I can promise you'll not only learn from me, but you'll learn from others in the group. We'll also have monthly webinars as part of the P4 Power Coaching community, and we'll have coaching resources and exercises. And you'll get first opportunities and special offers for many of the other things that we have to offer. And of course, you will get leadership encouragements. The P4 Power Coaching community is all about growth, success, and celebrating our wins. And remember, it's never too late for a fresh start with fresh faith. So embrace your exceptional leadership impact with fresh resolve to make the difference you were made for.